Hare Krishna, thank you for joining. Let's start with Radha Madhav today. Jayo Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jai Gopiyanavalava Jai Giravardhari Jai Gopiyanavalava Jai Giravardhari Shodanandana Vrajjana Ranjana Shodanandana Vrajjana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Jayo Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Gyantimiradhasya Gyananjana Shalakya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Taptam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Tadati Swapadantikam Deham Shri Guru Shri Kamalam Shri Gurupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathamritam Tam Sajivam Sadhvetam Savadutam Krishna Setam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Scha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kant Radha Kant Namastute Tapta Kanchan Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sutadevi Pranmami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatu Brihascha Kirpa Sindhu Bhayevacha Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavyo Namo 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 Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutle Śrīmate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Parcharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschat Dishatarine Jayo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Go Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Groti Vachalam Pangum Langyate Grim Yat Kirpataham Vandeshi Guruntin Taranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Taneshram Hariam Tassat Narayam Namaskritya Naram Cheva Naruttamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Madhuriyat Nashtapresha Abduresha Nityamaksya Bhakti Utam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nestaki. So Hare Krishna everyone. So continue. We're on verse 12 of this chapter 13, and last time we were talking about visiting holy places, and we should not visit holy places like a tourist, should be doing with devotion, and we not just sightseeing, we should try and learn something. And when you're there, whichever place you visit a temple or particular location, just try and envisage the pastimes of the Lord that took place there. So in other words, when we go there, we should have some knowledge of what we are visiting. It's not just a building, something interesting of art value, but we should really think about devotion and connecting with Krishna and his pastimes in that particular place. This is where he killed this demon, or this is where Krishna met the gopis, this is where the Ras dance was, this is where, say, you went to the Kurukshetra, this is where under the tree Krishna spoke Bhagavad-Gita. So like that, you try and imagine in your mind that Krishna was giving this talk, or Krishna was doing this. So it should be like that, not take some pictures, have a selfie. That's what most people do. But for devotees, it's different. So yeah, so that was the main theme. And this is how Vidur visited all the different places. He met the saints on the way, met Maitra Muni, and other personalities. Uddhav, he met Uddhav as well, and like that, and he got a lot of enlightenment from them. So let's continue on 12. Okay. So verse 12, iti ukto dharam rajena sarvam tat samvaraniyat yatha anubhutam karmasho vina yadukul shayam. So iti, thus uktha, being asked, dharam rajena, by King Yudhishthir, sarvam, all, tat, that, samvarnayat, properly described, yatha anubhutam, as he experienced, karmasha, one after another, vina, without, yadu kul shayam, annihilation of the Yadu dynasty. So thus being questioned by Maharaj Yudhishthir, Mahatma Vidur gradually described everything he had personally experienced, but except news of the annihilation of the Yadu dynasty. He didn't want to, that would that was a conversation breaker, that would just mess everything. He was there, and he didn't feel that he should be the one to discuss that topic anyway, because he knew that sooner or later they'll find out anyway, but he didn't want to be the one, the bearer of bad news, and this is the ultimate bad news, and he didn't want to do that. So just talk about everything else, but not that. So 11, 12. So Vidur avoided talking about the Yadus and what happened to Dwarka. He discussed everything else. That's what we have here. And 13. Nanav apriyam durvishyam narnam swayam upastitam navdayat sakruno dukitan drishtam akshamaha. So nanu, as a matter of fact, apriyam, unpalatable, durvisham, unbearable, nirnam, of humankind, swayam, in its own way, pastitam, appearance, na, did not, abdayat, expressed, sakarnuha, compassionate, dukitan, distressed, drishtum, to see, and akshama, unable. So compassionate Mahatma Vidur could not stand to see the Pandavas distressed any time. Therefore, he did not disclose this unpalatable and unbearable incident, because calamities come of their own accord. And what does that mean? Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport. So, according to Niti Shastra, or the civic laws, one should not speak an unpalatable truth to cause distress to others. the stress comes upon us in its own way by the laws of nature anyway. So why deliberately give the stress? So one should not aggravate it by propaganda. For a compassionate soul like Vidur, especially in his dealings with the beloved Pandavas, it was almost impossible to disclose an unpalatable piece of news like the annihilation of the Yadu dynasty. Therefore, he purposely refrained from it. Well, like I said, he knew what would happen. That would like just change everything, and he would not be able to continue, discussing anything, and so many, the whole atmosphere would change by that news. So Vidu could not share bad news because he didn't want to increase the stress of the Pandavas. Some people enjoy enjoy giving bad news and shocking people. They like to see the reaction. It gives them satisfaction to see the reaction. What happened? Like that. They some people are sick in the mind. They enjoy that kind of reaction. That, oh, look, I made them react like that. It says that some people enjoy giving bad news and shocking people. Sometimes they call newspapers, because newspapers are full of bad news. So these people go around spreading bad news and seeing people's reaction. They get satisfaction. They get kicks just by doing that. So quite sickening. Vidu didn't want to be the carrier of bad news. He only wanted to share what the positive things that had happened. कंचित कालम अथा पतिस्त सत्कृतो देववत् सुखम व्रतसूर ज्येष्ठस्य श्रेयस्कृत सर्वेषां सुखम आवहन. So Kanchit is for a few days, Kalam time, Ath thus Vatsit resided, Satkritha being well treated, Devavat just like a godly personality, Sukham amenities, Bhratu of his brother, Jeshtasya of the elder, Jesh like Jesh brother, Shriyakrit for doing good to him, Sarvesham, all others, Sukham, happiness, Avahan made it possible. Excuse me. Thus, Mahatma Vidur, being treated just like a godly person by his kinsman, remained there for a certain period just to rectify the mentality of his eldest brother. That's why he had come for. And in this way, bring happiness to all others. So he wanted to keep the jolly mood, the happy mood, as long as he could. Saintly person like Vidu must be treated as well as denizens from heaven. In those days, denizens of heavenly planets used to visit homes like that of Maharaj Yudhishthira, and sometimes persons like Arjuna and others used to visit higher planets. Narad is a spaceman who can travel unrestrictedly, not only within the material universe, but also in the spiritual universes. So Narad, he's seen everything. He's met everyone. Even Narada used to visit the palace of Maharaj Yudhishthira, but to speak of other celestial demigods. It is only the spiritual culture of the people concerned that makes interplanetary travel possible. Even in the present body, Maharaj Yudhishthira therefore received Vidur in the manner of reception offered to the demigods. This is how much they have awe for him. They had love for him and awe and reverence as well. Mahatma Vidur had already adopted the renounced sort of life, and therefore he didn't return to his paternal palace to enjoy some material comforts. So he's so used to sleeping rough, living rough, eating what was given to him. He was no longer interested in royalty comforts. He accepted out of his own mercy what was offered to him by Maharaj Yudhishthira. But the purpose of living in the palace was to deliver his elder brother, so that he was focusing on his goal, or his plan, which was really not to enjoy the kingdom, just like taking a break from rough living, enjoy, do some enjoyment for a while, take a break. No, he was motivated to help his brother, and all his focus was and energy was focused on that. And still, due to his sense of helplessness, he did not feel ashamed. So Dhritarashtra lost all his state and descendants in the fight with Maharaj Yudhishthira. So this is the scenario. So he had lost everything, and still, due to his sense of helplessness, he did not feel ashamed to accept the charity and hospitality of Maharaj Yudhishthira. So he's a king that who's lost everything. Now, first he was a king, now he's just an uncle. So he thinks, at least as an uncle I can live here. But the point is, what kind of uncle are you? Are you like a Vidur uncle, or a Dhritarashtra uncle? If you're Vidur uncle, that's fine. But you're the one who was the cause of millions and millions of people, death of millions and millions of people. And even Pandav sides, they lost their children. And it's all because of him. Because as a king, he could not do his job properly. And now he thinks I can still live here like nothing happened. So he did not feel ashamed to accept the charity and hospitality of Maharaj Yudhishthira, which he should be. On the part of Maharaj Yudhishthira, it was quite in order to maintain his uncle in a befitting manner. So Yudhishthira was not maintaining his rival king, he's maintaining his uncle, because that relationship you cannot break. But acceptance of such magnanimous hospitality by Dhritarashtra was not at all desirable. He accepted it because he thought that there was no alternative. He's so used to living the royal life from birth, and even though he was not a well man, he had a lot of health issues, but he still continued his sense gratification. Vidur particularly came to enlighten Dhritarashtra and to give him a lift to the higher status of spiritual cognition, which he never thought about. It's the duty of enlightened souls to deliver the fallen ones, and Vidur came for that reason. But talks of spiritual enlightenment are so refreshing that while instructing Dhritarashtra, Vidur attracted the attention of all the members of the family, and all of them took pleasure in hearing him patiently. So even though he's talking to Dhritarashtra, other people benefited as well. This is the way of spiritual realization. The message should be heard attentively, and if spoken by a realized soul, it will act on the dormant heart of the conditioned soul. And by continuously hearing, one can attain the perfect stage of self-realization. So it's like Srila Prabhupada, he managed to convince so many Europeans, so many Americans, so many East Europeans, people about Krishna consciousness. I mean, this was totally new culture, new philosophy for those people. But because Srila Prabhupada was self-realized soul, he was an enlightened soul, he could do that. He had the potency to do that. And when you ask, if you ask a person of different nationality, what attracted them to Krishna consciousness, because like they didn't know who Krishna was. At least we know who Krishna is, and even though we may have at one time thought he was just another demigod, but after the clarification, we understand that he's the supreme personality of Godhead. So we know that Krishna's position, and that was we just needed a modification to our beliefs, but we're already some part of the way there, from birth. But for people of different nationality, different background, different culture. They may even be atheists, which many were, hippies. They did not believe in any God. So, or there may be even Christians who who would not change their religion, even they're fed to the lions as they used to by the Romans, that they would not give up their beliefs. But Srila Prabhupada, he had so much potency, convincing power, just like Narad Muni. So Prabhupada, very much like Narad Muni, that he could convince people about the absolute truth, and they think yes. And then he would show by his own behavior, his own activities, that he was really connected, and he was doing what he was saying, and not just giving philosophy, he was actually following it himself, and he was special. He could do 3-4 programs in one day and still be full of energy, and for a 70-plus-year-old person, that is like unique. And he's staying up getting up 2 o'clock in the night, just sleeping a few hours and writing, doing well, he's not doing for himself. He doesn't know how much time he has. He actually thought he could go any day, but so he was doing it for mankind of the Kali Yuga, so they could benefit. So like that, now they have so much potency, so much to give. Vidur, similarly, he has potency that even other people are happy to listen to him. So that's 14. So Vidur came back to his brother Drishtar, but everyone who was there also took advantage of his mercy. Vidur's instructions to Dhritarashtra about the truth of life, we can all take advantage from. So we can also learn from Vidur, what Vidur is saying, because when Dhritarashtra and other people are hearing, then that applies to us. We are the other people, applies to us as well. We don't have to be like directly related to Vidur to take the advantage of this information. It's for everyone. The realized soul, the relation he has, to that degree, he will impact on the heart of the hearers. So if we are not able to convince anyone about Krishna consciousness, whether it's family, friends, or strangers, it just has to be a lack on our, that's how we should see it anyway, a lack on our part, that we are not able to convince them. Whereas a realized soul would just come and just tell them, and people, yes, I know what you're saying, I understand this, and yes, I'm going to follow this. Like that. If we're not able to convince them, we should think that we are lacking somewhere and we need to work on ourselves. So you can memorize the philosophy and learn the mantras and shlokas, but the impact on the souls will be to the degree of our realization, because we cannot give something that we don't have ourselves. We think we can, but if we don't have it, you can't give it. So like work on yourself, and then you can the more you work on yourself, the more you can give. We have to realize the teachings, apply the teachings, then share the knowledge. So it's like that. Potency comes from education, practice, and realization. So Vidu was realized, he's sharing this knowledge. That's the trigger to start thinking about what has been said. We need to constantly hear. That's what nourishes the devotional creeper, which we received at first contact. The fault is not in the process, it's our endeavor that is lacking. So it's like that. So yeah, we just need to keep working on ourselves until the fire is lit, and then we can share that with others. Abhibrid Aryama Dandam Yathavad Agkarishu Yavad Datar Shudra Atvam Shapad Varsh Shatam Yamha. So Abhibrit, Brat, administered, Aryama or Aryam Yama, Danda, punishment, Yathavat, as it was suitable, Ag Rishu, onto persons who had committed sins, yavat, as long as the dhar accepted, Shudra Atmam, the tabernacle of a Shudra, Shapat, Shapat, as the result of a curse, Varsh Shatam for 100 years, Yama Yamraj. As long as Vidur played the part of a Shudra, being cursed by Manduka Muni, a Yama officiated at the post of Yamraj to punish those who committed some act. So Vidur is here playing part, or Yamraj is here playing part of Vidur, while you got a Yama who's running that post. These posts can, these are just posts. Yamraj is a post, Indra is a post. So different people can run those positions. Brahma is a post. So while he's away, we got Aryama running the show there. So Vidur, born in the womb of Shudra woman, was forbidden even to be a party of royal heritage along with his brothers Dhritarashtra and Pandu. Then how could he occupy the post of a preacher to instruct such learned kings and Kshatriyas at Dhritarashtra and Maharaj? So he's Vidur, who's meant to be a Shudra, cannot even line himself up with the Kshatriyas, but now he's behaving like a Brahman here. So the first answer is that even though it is accepted that he was a Shudra by birth, because he renounced the world for spiritual enlightenment by the authority of Rishi Maitreya and was thoroughly educated by him in transcendental knowledge, he was quite competent to occupy the post of an Acharya or a spiritual preceptor. That's the reason, because Shudra, you only Shudra if you just don't know anything, you don't know any better, you're in the mode of ignorance. That's the Shudra. But he has been enlightened by Rishi Maitreya, so he has every right to be preaching the knowledge he has received. And according to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, anyone who is conversant in the transcendental knowledge or the science of Godhead, be he a Brahman or a Shudra, a householder or a sannyasi, is eligible to become a spiritual master. Even in the ordinary moral codes maintained by Chanakya Pandit, the great politician and moralist, there is no harm in taking lessons from a person who may be by birth less than a Shudra. So even Chanakya Pandit agrees with that. This is one part of the answer. The other is that Vidu was not actually a Shudra. He was to play the part of a so-called Shudra for 100 years, being cursed by Manduka Muni. He was the incarnation of Yamraj, one of the 12 Mahajans. So he's actually a Mahajan. And the level with such exalted personality as Brahma, Narad, Shiva, Kapil, Bhisham, Prahlad, etc. So of the 12 Mahajans, he's one Mahajan. Being a Mahajan, it's the duty of Yamraj to preach the cult of devotion to the people of the world, as Narad, Brahma, and Mahajans do. Yamraj, he was already preaching, even as Yamraj. Excuse me. So when the Yamdutas came to get Ajamil, and they couldn't take him because the Vishnudutas were there, and so the Yamdutas went back to Yamraj in great astonishment, saying, Lord, we thought that you were the highest entity, but now we've heard about Narayan. Who is Narayan, and how is he higher than you? So Yamraj actually, it was like, oh, are we found out, and my credibility is going to be lower now. My respect is gone. No, he was very happy to hear these questions from the Yamdutas. That great, they've asked me this wonderful question, because now I can talk about Lord Narayan, and I can glorify Lord Narayan. So that's why he's a Mahajan, because they love to glorify the Lord, not just thinking about their own gratification. So he was already enlightening the Yamdutas. So, but Yamraj is always busy in his plutonic kingdom, punishing the doers of sinful acts. Yamraj is deputed by the Lord to a particular planet, some hundreds of thousands of miles away from planet Earth, to take away the corrupt souls after death and convict them in accordance with their respective sinful activities. Thus, Yamraj has very little time to take leave from his responsible office of punishing the wrongdoers. There are more wrongdoers than righteous men. Therefore, Yamraj has to do more work than other demigods who are also authorized agents of the Supreme Lord. But he wanted to preach the glories of the Lord, and therefore, by the will of the Lord, he was cursed by Manduka Muni to come into the world in the incarnation of Vidur and work very hard as a great devotee. Such a devotee is neither Shudra nor a Brahman. He is transcendental to such divisions of mundane society. Just as a personal Godhead assumes his incarnation as a hog, but is neither a hog nor a Brahma. He is always above all mundane creatures. The Lord and his different authorized devotees sometimes have to play the role of many lower creatures to claim the conditioned souls. But both the Lord and his pure devotees are always in the transcendental position. When Yamraj first incarnated himself as Vidur, his post was officiated by a Yama, one of many sons of Kashyap and Aditi. So the Adityas are sons of Aditi, and there are 12 Adityas. A Yama is one of the 12 Adityas. And therefore it was quite possible for him to take charge of the office of Yamraj during his 100 years absence in the form of Vidur. The conclusion is that Vidur was never a Shudra, but was greater than the purest type of Brahman. So there's a demigod doing his duty, while Vidur was away. So you can imagine his position, and he was happy to play this role. It's like in a drama, you get whatever role you get. You just have to do that role to your best ability. Even like say Hollywood, Bollywood, so great actor, he might have to do a negative role, like a negative person, and get beaten up by the hero. But they will do that really well. They convince you that yes, they're really bad. They're really awful entities, and one time you might see them as great heroes, then you see them as the bad, and you believe that as well. Yes, this person's really bad. So they're happy to do the role. They know there's a pastime, and they're happy to do the role. And Vidur, I had the opportunity to preach, and there's nothing higher than able to preach the glories of the Lord. So that's that. So how can a Shudra instruct a Kshatriya, which we discussed? This is the task of Brahmins. He had become renounced. His lower birth was not a disqualification for him to become a spiritual master. So that's never a disqualification. So we've seen in history the many Shudras, bandits who have become spiritual masters. They have written, great scriptures. So in spirituality, there is no disqualification. We are all fragments of Lord Krishna. His marginal energy. Body is just a temporary instrument. That's what it is, and we just give it different names according to person's caste, birth, or his ability. That's it is very, very temporary. But the soul is always of superior energy. So thank you so much, and let's hear from yourselves. Hare Krishna. Okay, so we will hear from Mahina Mataji and then Kiran Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for the class, Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hope everyone's well. Yeah, these verses cover off Vidura's conversation with Dhritarashtra and how he convinced him eventually to and influenced him to renounce his life and seek something higher, as we shall see in the forthcoming verses. Vidura had already accepted the renounced order of life, so I think this may have helped influence him, to influence the family members and Dhritarashtra himself, because he was living it himself. And sometimes there's nothing greater than being like a living example as well. And also the latter verses covered off how, one's birth does not determine whether one can be a preacher or a spiritual master. And this was something that we know that's clearly come through Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leela and Krishna Leela. This was demonstrated by them, and also to the fact that Vidura himself was actually Yamraj as well, was playing the role of a great devotee. So it's important for us to learn to not accept things on the superficial level. Those were my key points. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna. Thanks so much, Mataji. Kiran Prabhu?
Hare Krishna, everybody. We understand and we learn that Vidur is such an elevated soul. From time to time, elevated souls come to liberate us. And Vidur came to liberate his brother and to show him the false illusion, the misguided apprehensions and perceptions that Dhritarashtra had, and how this impacted upon his dynasty. We have to be mindful that when elevated souls come, they come with a purpose. We all have a purpose, but their purpose is such that we have people like Bhishma Dev, Kunti Mata, very, very elevated souls that we can learn from. And they come when they've the right time, place, and circumstances. Vidur returned after the Battle of Kurukshetra to help restore sanity to the kingdom, but also to help his brother and the rest of the family examine the flaws of what had gone on. Vidur is an example to us all that we are also now being imparted with wisdom. And such is that wisdom that in our daily lives we have to be able to convince others in the role, in the greatness, the magnificence of Krishna consciousness. Some of us do it with our families, some of us do it in different settings at work, some of us do it on the streets with book distribution. Some of us do it so well even through kirtans. It is still imparting the message of Krishna consciousness. The efforts are necessary. The efforts will be recognized by divinity, by his glances. These verses are powerful and deep. Hear them with awe and reverence. Hear them and remember them, because they're here to liberate and give us salvation. We are tainted, we are tarnished, we have blemishes, but these verses, these individuals will help us become purified. And in that purification, we are learning how to apply that knowledge, apply that wisdom, and help not only ourselves. In helping ourselves, we help others. So in that preaching process, until we refine and understand this thing very carefully, we can't teach somebody as well. A teacher or a preacher is only good as the information he has embedded deeply in his or her heart and mind. The quality of the aspirant or the student is only as good as the teacher. And Vidura was a fabulous teacher. And Vidura and other statespeople should be seen with great reverence and divinity. Yamraj also was another devotee, but he has a role to fulfill. And it is like all of us, we have roles, purposes, and our sanatan dharmic duties we have to fulfill. But do it with grace, do it with dignity, do it with that thing that is enshrined in Vedic wisdom. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we keep working on ourselves, and then we can test it, isn't it? We see, we test our potency, but we shouldn't get, if we manage to convince others, which doesn't mean that you get, oh, look, I've become very powerful. I guess, you think, okay, now see if I can convince somebody, even more difficult to convince. So you keep working like that. And plus the fact one day you might be able to convince someone to an extent, and then another day you might not be able to convince anyone, just like Arjun, he was such a great fighter, and then he couldn't even beat ordinary men who weren't really, great warriors or anything. So everything comes from Krishna, the potency comes from him. He can give it, and he can also take it away as well. And that's we need to be mindful of that. That Krishna can give, he can also take away, like he did with Arjun while he was there. Well, the potency was needed of fighting, Arjun had it. When it's no longer required, Krishna left, and Arjun's abilities were no longer required, so Krishna took them away from him. And with us as well, Krishna will only give us the potencies, the opulences that he knows that we will use in Krishna's service. Otherwise, we're not using them in Krishna's service, especially if you're using unfavorably, he's like to take them away, because he doesn't want us to have obstructions to our bhakti. So he'll be doing us a favor if he takes away those things, so we can continue on the path of bhakti, with clear, no obstructions on the way. So we have to make sure we use everything in Krishna's service, and we do it knowingly that who's the actual doer. Without Krishna, we are just one of the doers, but very limited. Really, the doer is the Lord, and he uses Prakriti, his material energy, to help us, which in the form of this body. So thank you so much. Parveen Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Pranam. The starting verse started with how Mahatma Vidura didn't want to share the annihilation of the Yadu dynasty. So he described everything else. So that shows how the elevated souls, they don't want to upset anybody. They don't want to share the sad things. And like now we see in Kali Yuga, so like you said, people, they take pleasure by giving, by saying hurtful things and how people react. So all glories to Srila Prabhupada teaching us, how we should conduct ourselves. And then the main point is like, we can only give what we have, and actions should speak louder than words. Then we don't even need to tell anybody what to do, because people will just follow. So it is our endeavor that we need to make sure we are doing our best to surrender and engage in the services of Krishna. And that is the Holy Savior. Like this morning we read 7.13 verse, where it describes how Maya is so strong. It causes attachment or confusion. Like in case of Arjuna, he was not attached, but he was confused. So Maya is so strong. It's only the lotus feet of the Lord that can save us. And thank you so much, Prabhuji, for reading Bhagavatam to us. So we're getting opportunity to learn from all these exalted devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maya. Thank you for joining and sharing, your own realizations, own wisdom. It just makes it a lot more wholesome instead of, me just reading and then saying something. It's nice to get everybody's views on it and, just have the whole thing together. Brethren?
Hare Krishna, everyone. My pronouns to all of you. Yes, Vidur has arrived back from the pilgrimage, as we have been reading since the last few sanghas. And it's so nice to, if you look at these teachings, they seem very simple at times, and they seem very down to earth, and sometimes it seems that everybody should know these things. They're very, in a way, they're common sense, but like the saying goes, common sense is not so common. So that applies to all the jivas of Kali Yuga. We are here because of a reason, because we have done wrong in the past lives. So we're trying to adjust ourselves for the ultimate service of Lord Hari in his dham one day. So how is this going to happen? It's not going to happen just by us taking birth and just doing our normal things, eating, sleeping, and this and that. That is not going to take us. It's just these shastras. Until we delve deep into these, our souls won't get liberated. And the more and more we are reading and trying to learn some essence of them and try to implement something, then we realize that they look very simple on the face value, these teachings, but they are really, really, I don't know what's the highest gem. It's called 24 karat, or is it that's in the gold, but in the case of diamonds and all that, I don't know which is the highest carat. Whatever is the highest carat, that's the value of the teachings in these shastras, in these verses. So how big-hearted a person has to be that he arrives, he knows that this has happened, the yadus have been annihilated, and then he's able to control himself, he's able to contain himself, and he's able to come to the point. He sees what has to be done. He knows the priorities. But in this life, I think this is the problem with all of us. We don't know our priorities. Like this, I don't know what's the right words to use in this sangha. We end up saying, or we end up hearing from others, which is not required for that particular moment. And if everyone becomes a little bit mindful, whenever they're meeting anyone, okay, we all are having a lot of problems inside us. Instead of just sharing that this is what I'm going through, if we can bring the name of Lord Hari when we see each other first, I think half of our problems will calm down. Krishna will give us that strength at that moment. I think this is what lacks in us. When we are happy, we just want to, just burst that that little bubble of happiness. Yeah. And sometimes we don't even think that the other person, what they might be going through, we don't know. And on the other side, bad news is broken without even thinking that the other person might be having something after a long time which they have been waiting for in their life. So we are very insensitive, the jivas of this Kali Yuga. This is what I felt after hearing the verses today, that we have to bring the sensitivity, compassion in our communication. That is lacking. And it's very hard. It's very hard because we have got mind, we've got all the senses, we are too much attached to our bodies, we're too much attached to our families, we're too much attached to our prestige, our position, what I am, what others think of me, and blah, blah, blah. So, but the one thing we have to remember is the sensitivity in communication, and this is the biggest lesson I've had from, and compassion, of course, from Vidurji. And I hope Vidurji, the incarnation of Yamraj, he's listening to our little Sangha here, and he's going to bless us all with that compassion which he brought when he came back to the lives of the Gurus. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thanks so much. Yeah. So in other words, when we meet people, well, we don't take, even on the material level, when we associate with people, we go out and associate, we're hoping that, we can leave our problems just for a bit behind and get cheered up by other people, and we can cheer them up as well. But I think what Radharani is saying, that instead of getting cheered up, you get more miserable because people offload their problems. You only have your own, carrying your own problems, and people offload like that. So we try and help people by cheering them up rather than offloading on them. And as association devotees, if you want to offload, then offload Krishna consciousness onto other people, so they feel satisfied that they've learned something by your association today. You give them something which they didn't have, and they've learned something from you. So like that. So and it's great, not something that I suppose we can be mindful of, that what can I offer these people today, and so they think, wow, it was very nice to have my association, and hopefully they'll do the same, that they feel that what can I offer, what have I learned recently or since I met them last, that I can share with them. Would that be great? But unfortunately we don't always do that, and we don't have that much to give, and so we sort of fill it up with other stuff that was probably unnecessary. So that's the way things are. But we can only work on ourselves. We cannot work on others. We can work on ourselves.
Yeah, that reminds me, our Guru Maharaj, His Holiness Jayapataka Maharaj, whenever there is anything, bothersome or worrisome, I just remember him. And I think we all should look at the ones who are undergoing harder time than us. That brings the satisfaction, that brings the compassion quickly in ourselves, I've seen. And every time I have to just remember my Guru Maharaj, and that's it. Everything seems nothing at that moment when I see that how much he is suffering on the body level, but what a warrior he is. He's out there every day, no matter what, with the nuggets to share. And I've never heard him in any of his class saying that I'm suffering. And only thing I've heard once from him was that if anyone has problem looking at me, how my body looks at the moment, then don't look just here, or just read the transcription. I thought how compassionate he is. He knows that people have got their judgments, and they can think like that. Before others could even think of or write anything about him, he had said that long time back, that if you can't look at me when I'm saying, it's fine. If you can't understand what I'm saying, because the interpreter has to repeat that, because not everybody can understand what Maharaj is saying sometimes on some days. And then he says, just read the teachings on my website, or on the WhatsApp messages or the social media messages. So these great souls who are still with us, that is why this world is going on, and they teach us and they give us hope to us all the time. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Kantrashmi Bhagavad ki jai, Prabhupada ki jai, Go Premanam.
Hari Hari Bol.
Hare Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you.